from education to climate change to good water, and I mean clean water and all of that. These are issues that are very pertinent to discuss. I've been joined now by Nino Kofi Omabo. He's a Ghanaian youth leader and also an SDG advocate, and he's going to help me have this conversation this morning. I'm likely going to be joined by one other gentleman very soon to have this conversation. Nino, good morning. How are you? Hello, Nino.
Good morning, Trevi.
Yeah, how are you?
Good morning to your guests.
Great. How are you doing?
Doing good. It's a new day and cool mornings these days. So,
I see. All right. So let's get into it. We have very limited time, and so we'll just try and touch on a few things, and then we can go now. But first of all, how do you see the fight, or maybe the pursuits of achieving the SDGs so far? Maybe you can look at it in Ghana and beyond. What are your thoughts on that?
For many of us, I think for some of you who know, some of people who don't know, the SDGs phase of which started was in 2015. So before then, there was the Millennium Development Goals, which the UN, including all national governments that were signed to it, signed up to. One of the major successes of the MDGs was that we were able to cut maternal mortality by the end of its phase. In 2015 was when the SDGs was launched. Basically, the world came together and said, how can we set more ambitious goals for our development? And they wanted to categorize into 17 areas of focus. When you look clearly at the SDGs, these 17 areas are the most pressing issues related to our development, related to our life. And there's only much you can do at the national level. We have national policies as a country, but there's only much you can do at the national level. And so on the international scene, national governments came together to agree on the SDGs. I think that it took off very nicely in 2015 till now. It's been a lot of work has gone into it. We've seen a lot of visibility on the SDGs. There have been many international and local discussions here in Ghana, like the African Youth SDGs Conference, that led the charge for the conversation. It also fed into different policy instruments, even in Ghana, like the National Youth Policy and so on. I think that soon it dipped a bit, and what has happened is that it's not been so popular. But the challenges are still alive, and it requires that we push towards achieving the SDGs. Some of them, there are 17 of them, and I can't go through all of them, but some of the most important
feel free,
ones.
you can highlight them.
Yes, so SDG 1, no poverty, is one of the most important one, trying to achieve that by the end of 2030, which is the time frame which the SDG should have been achieved. We're able to address poverty issues of hunger, issues related to our cities in the world. SDG 11 is issues related to consumption. So how we eat, how we make sure that we don't waste food and save food, or think about food through a circular economy, which is, we have food waste. We have mango waste, which were stored from Medina Market. How do we make sure that it goes through the value chain to make sure that it doesn't become waste, end up at the landfill? And being at the landfill means it contributes to emission, because food waste contributes to emissions. But an example is, for example, people are using mango waste to feed cows. And it's a clear example of how we will to make sure that we consume responsible, but also think about the cyclical nature of our consumption. And so there's been a lot of work, but I think it's dipped a bit. And I think one of the reasons why this year's theme is about SDG focus is to revive that kind of drive towards achieving the SDGs. And most of the things that we talk about in the SDGs, young people will be the one that will live in a poverty-free world, in a world that we consume more responsible, responsibly, a war that we take, action on climate, a war that we protect our land and forests. We've seen how important these days it's become, and even some of the incidents connected to it. And so this is what I can say in terms of what the journey has been and how things look like now.
Right. Okay. Nino, you hold on for me. We've also been joined now by Emmanuel Odonko. He is also a youth leader. I mean, doing amazing things with the European Union and other international bodies. And he's joined us over the phone lines now. Iman, good morning. Welcome to the Business Breakfast on Z.
Hi, good morning, Raphael. Good morning, Illinois. And then good morning to your cherished listeners.
Right.
I'm pleased to connect with you this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting to do this. So I was asking, just before you joined, that I mean, this is 2025. The benchmark year for the SDGs was set up to be 2030. We have just 5 years more to wrap up that. What do you think the journey has been like so far in achieving the SDGs?
Thank you very much. I mean, today is an international day to celebrate young people, our achievements, and then what happens if we are being brought onto the table. Notwithstanding, I'd like to take the opportunity to say that while Ghana has appropriately postponed today's celebration here, in respect for those that we lost last Wednesday, I mean, today still reminds us globally of what young people's power could be to create a positive change. And also, perhaps we are looking at it from the best way we can to also honor the life that has been lost through the meaningful work young people are playing and are doing in building a better future. Because when you look at the lost 8 people, we have half of it being young people too as well. Yes. So the role that young people are playing for the SDGs student, I like the fact that you made mention that we just barely have 5 years to, I mean, come back to the table and assess the impact so far. And I would say that 5 years is just a university cycle. That means that it goes a long way to let us understand the intricacies involved that young people bring to the table. So, for example, we have over 1.8 billion young people globally. I mean, that's the largest generation in history in terms of demography. And when we narrow it down to Africa, we are having about 60% of our population who are below the age of 25.
Right.
That is unprecedented in terms of demographic dividend. Again, so young people bring innovation, we bring digital skills and a fresh perspective to old problems. So you would see that back in the day, they'll tell you that this is not how we do it. We do it this way. Something that is going to take, let's say, 5 hours or a whole 24 hours to accomplish a particular task. Now, here's the case. Through the fresh perspectives and minds of young people, we can use less than an hour or less than 30 minutes to just complete a whole day's activity. That should tell us that we are going further. So let's take, for example, activism. It's also a way that we can also use to achieve the SDGs. For example, this Greta, the climate youth activist, her activism on raising more, creating more euphoria and bringing more ideas and, I mean, shedding more light on climate change has shaped or has reshaped global perspective in terms of policy. Do you understand me? I'll limit it to Ghana alone. How are we playing or how are youth impact on the SDGs? For example, in Ghana, let's take SDG Goal 4. That's quality education. Quality education through peer-to-peer learning programs and even possibly digital literacy initiatives has helped us to bridge that gap a bit. But initially, when you talk of education, a lot of people are not really educated in their country. But I think the SWAL government brought about free SHS, which opened the gateway for a lot of people to have access to education. So in terms of that, we are closing the gap.
Okay.
Then let's look at quality SDG Goal 8. That's decent work. We now have a lot of youth entrepreneurship creating jobs for other young people in the country. We have over, I mean, close to, we can, in terms of youth entrepreneurs that we have in the system, there are a lot. And if one youth entrepreneur is initiative is creating, let's say, 10 employment, you can imagine if we are having thousands of that in the space, which I believe we do. So that's also in terms of decent work and economic growth. That's the SDG goal 8. We are also closing the gap.
Right.
These are all youth initiatives and young people coming to the table. I mean, I spoke about SDG goal 13. Let's look at peace and security and justice. SDG goal 16. You realize that when we take Sierra Leone, for example, let's look at the West African region. Sierra Leone currently is one country that initially was a war-torn country, but now they've gone past the war stage and then they are in a post-conflict, environment. Young people are being peace builders in post-conflict society like that of Sierra Leone. Just last week, the Sierra Leone chief representative to the UN was in Ghana, and I happened to have hosted him. And his work and he's based in New York. His work at the New York headquarters with the UN level on how we could integrate young people in youth peace and security initiatives is tremendous. So for me, in short, from 2015 to date, 10 years into the Sustainable Development Goals, most of the achievements wouldn't have been possible without the involvement of young people,
right?
Without recognizing that young people are not just people that we need to just include in it in the form of tokenism, but then we are active partakers and proven stakeholders that shows that with us it is possible. So I think young people at the front in terms of achieving the SDGs. We've done so much, we've put in so much, and we've proved that if we continue to work together hand in hand, we are going to achieve these SDGs, regardless of how short we think 5 years could come.
Okay, right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. You like to be called ODK, so maybe I'll just call you that. ODK. Thank you very much for that.
Yes, we have a lot of Emmanuels in the country.
I know, right? Okay, so we've also been joined. I have in studio now Felix Preman Inketia. He's also a youth leader doing some amazing stuff, and he joins us. And now, Felix, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing well.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm well too. Thank you. I know, I can imagine how you rushed to be here this morning.
Yes.
Really grateful that you made it. So let's talk about the same thing. I wanted to catch a glimpse of what we've been doing in terms of the SDGs, trying to achieve it. I mean, for the past 10 years, so 2015 till now, we've made some progress, I believe. What are your thoughts on that generally?
I agree with ODK on not excluding youth when it comes to the SDGs, because without youth, it will not be possible to achieve these things. So I think, although there is room for more improvement, I do appreciate the fact that there are so many improvements or development works that youth has spearheaded. If you take Ghana alone, when you look at the works of individuals and organizations such as Gaio, Future of Africa, other youth, even just the Bastard Boys, look at how like the massive improvements, the massive development works that they are all doing currently. So I would say we've come a long way, and then I do recognize these things, and I do appreciate that we are able to move through these developments, and we are still doing it. Several people are actually raising their voice, using their voices for good, and using their actions too. So it is incredible work.
Right. Okay. So we've been able to make progress. Let me come to Ninoy. Ninoy, you are into climate and sustainability and all of that. Are you with us, Ninoy? Hello, Ni?
Yeah, Trebi.
Okay, yeah. I'm saying you working climate and sustainability. Do you think that we're giving too much attention to climate and sustainability as compared to the other SDGs? And I want us to talk about SDGs before we come to the roles of the young people, really.
Yes. So I think that the answer is no, and I feel that the reason we may think that we've given too much attention to climate and sustainability is because um, achieving a lot of the SDGs requires the sustenance of our world, and so if we achieve all the all the SDGs, and we are not fighting towards a safe planet where we can live and breathe and enjoy all of the things that we fight towards, then somebody say cost 90. So I think that's why it may seem so, but I will sort of agree in some way that we've not been able to pull the other SDGs along in connection with climate action, because the truth is that when we protect the earth, we protect the forest. When we protect the earth, we are able to ensure that we build sustainable cities. So they are very much interconnected, but I think that it's not been the synergies have not been built along those lines for us to see the connection with it.
Yeah, because I see a lot of work in terms of climate change. Almost every organization that I see is working on something like that, and there are a few individuals who are doing something related to quality education. I mean, you rarely hear some of the SDGs who can talk about the strong institutions and all of these SDGs that we're not talking about much. Do you see the same thing, Felix?
Yeah, I do see that. I have a lot of friends who are young leaders. Majority of them are into climate change. I can agree. So with some of us that are tackling zero hunger, no poverty, especially when it comes to kids, you don't see a lot of people in our space. So I don't know if climate change is the one that sells the most, or I do agree that it is important, because before we can tackle hunger, we have to tackle the environment we live in, because when we wake up, we breathe the air, and we need to ensure that every individual or leader is actually advocating for a little bit of climate change. But I do agree, we cannot tackle these SDGs exclusively. You have to work hand in hand, and that is one thing that I don't really see young leaders, especially in Ghana, do. Collaborating together, interdisciplinary, to be able to tackle these problems alongside. Because you cannot just only focus on climate change, and then when it's done, all the people will already be dead, because there's no feeding, there's no stronger institutions for them to grow in. So I think these SDGs must go hand in hand. So in as much as we hear a lot about climate actions and all, it is also equally important to also be advancing our voices on the zero hunger, the stronger institutions, the good health and well-being, and all the other SDGs. Yeah.
All right. So you agree with the assertion that we've paid so much attention to climate change and a few other SDGs, and we've left a lot of the other ones in place.
Trebi, just to add that usually these things is also where global financing is being
exactly, because I was coming to that. A lot of the young people say that's where the money is, but you go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it seems that global financing is very much targeted towards climate action. So it feels as if now everybody's focused. But then again, there's great opportunity to connect the dots. If we need to improve education, for example, recently UNICEF has launched a climate literacy portal. I mean, it's very much connected to SDG 4. And so I think that for many organizations, many young people are trying to drive action on SDGs. We need to make the connection between other goals and the climate goals, and we can tap into the different finance landscape to do amazing work for people and plan.
Right, back to you, Felix. Thank you very much, Nino. Back to you, Felix. You were talking about working collaboratively. How is that possible? How do you envision that a time or a system where somebody is in climate change, another person is in education, they are coming together? What would be the picture if you can paint it for us?
Okay, so I'll start with what we are currently doing. What are we doing? Everybody is separately working on their own goals, their own activities, and then sharing it on social media with with their organizations and stuff. So just as the way we use social media to promote our own objectives and our own activism, why don't we use the same social media to promote the collaboration that we are doing together? So you're on LinkedIn, you see this guy or this organization working in climate change. That's good. You support them, you volunteer for them. Why don't you rope in the other person also working on maybe peace and justice, working on stronger institutions, working on tackling hunger, working on reducing poverty rates, so working on gender. So, when you bring these people interdisciplinary or interconnectedness, then it makes the movement stronger because, together we are stronger than individuals. Yeah.
I see. So we can come together and work on that. Now let's look at it in Ghana here more specifically, and I'll come to you, ODK. ODK, do you see a lot of work going on in line with the SDGs as a country? Do you see that?
Yes, I think the country is positioned in a way to be more adaptive, to be more supportive in terms of the achievement of the SDGs. And I would say that looking at it, the SDG government again, for example, they even created an office for SDG. They had an office at the presidency for SDGs.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. That shows that the government is putting in commitment. And you see, not forgetting that at the time, the former President Akufo-Addo, was co-chairing the SDGs at the global level with the former Germany leader, Angela. And I think that also inspired that office being created. That alone shows that we have our doors are open, the presidency is aligned. The current administration is following suit similarly. And so in this case, yes, the country is putting in efforts in their own ways to ensure that we achieve the SDGs. Let's look at gender equality and gender parity. We just recently passed the Affirmative Action Act. Now it's the Affirmation Action Law, which shows that in terms of representation on gender lines, we are supposed to have, on a scale of 1 to 10, we are supposed to have 4 out of it, minimum 4 out of the 10 being female represented. And when we look at the current leadership in parliament, we have over 37% representation being female, which has surpassed the 25% from the African Union in terms of representation. And when you go a bit further, you would also understand that. So it's not that we just passed a decade law of an affirmative action, which shows that we need to have female representation for gender equality, SDG Goal 5, which also trickles down to the representation in parliament and also the appointment that was followed up by the president after the elections. So in terms of the country positioning itself, or the country's progress towards achieving the SDGs, I think the country is doing very well in their own very small way. Considering the fact that, let's look at decent work again, SDG Goal 8. The current government, or the SDG administration, also did their best with NAPCO trainee. You see, in as much as that policy was not really effective, let's look at the intentionality as that part of it, because the government was intentional to ensure that, we would create a space for young people. Some people will take it as tokenism, but it was an intentional approach to get started from one point. Now, the current administration has so much flagship policies that ensures that the welfare and the well-being of young people is a center. Now, the creation of a standalone youth ministry is fantastic. That tells you that we are being intentional again in our approach to, bridging a gap in terms of youth representation, in terms of youth development. And despite the fact that a new youth ministry, standalone youth ministry, has been created, there are flagship programs, entrepreneurships, the likes of you. So I think when we come to Ghana specifically and our role and our contribution towards achieving of the SDGs, we are doing our part.
We're doing well.
But what needs to be done is that we need to be more intentional in terms of policy representation. In terms of policy, when I say policy, I'm referring to committees that are being set up. Are we being intentional to ensure that these committees are fairly represented in terms of gender, balance. And then these committees are fairly represented in terms of young people being represented there, and also, if not just representation, to ensure that their voices are heard and then they are being given the opportunity. So for me, the country is positioned in so many ways to do that. And even not just to add this, recently the European Union delegation in Ghana launched the Youth Sounding Board Ghana chapter. What it means is that they want to give an opportunity to young people in Ghana by creating a platform where they can work collaboratively with these young people. So the Youth Sounding Board initiative in Ghana talks about having a group of young people, 25, 20, that would advise the EU in Ghana on any of their flagship programs or any of their initiatives, so that it's going to be youth-centric, youth-aligned, and youth-focused.
Okay.
So that should tell you that both national initiatives, international initiative bodies coming on board, they are all trying their very possible best to align with the youth agenda. So I think, yes, we're on the right path. We just have to be intentional, and then we will see these streamlined initiatives bringing the results that it's needed in the long run.
Okay. All right. Okay, let me come to you, Nino. Is there anything you want to add to that? Hello, Nino.
Yes, Trevi. Could you please repeat?
I'm asking if there's anything you want to add to what ODK just said about whether we are, as a country or as a nation, we are working towards the SDGs effectively. And I would agree with him on the fact that the erstwhile administration had an office, and I had opportunity to do a few things with that office. In the erstwhile administration, I haven't seen the current government have a secretariat for the SDG. I'm not too sure. I don't want to say maybe it's not something that they are very much interested in. But what do you think? From what you said, do you think that we're making a lot more progress as a country? Really, I know we touch on that across the globe, but now let's focus on the country.
Okay, so I agree with ODK. ODK mentioned some of the significant things like the SDG advocacy group that was co-chaired by Inge and the president. And like you said, rightly said, there was an SDG advisory unit at the office of the president. I think I heard that now it's been shut down. I think they try to work it around with the 24-hour economy project. But I think that we've had enough grounding in terms of policy. You know, Ghana, every year, the NDPC reports on how we are doing in terms of the SDGs. But I think that we need to quickly move into actionable steps. We need something like an action hub of some sort, where we are working together to address the different solutions. And at the center of this can be young people. There are many people who have innovative ideas. They want to use plastics to make roofing. How much are we creating the ecosystem of capacity, of technical support, of finance to help them scale whatever they are doing? That's the most important thing. And we can work across all the different SDGs. Someone has a menstrual health solutions, is using alternative banana peels to make sanitary pads. How much support can we bring people into an action hub where people are just working on solution and we are helping them deploy the solutions across the country? I think that's where we really need to go. And when you look at I did a research recently, and you look at how much finance is being channeled towards the digital economy alone. But how much of that, results do we see? So I think that we need to move in a more serious direction.
Right. Okay. Well, if you just tuned in, this is Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM with me, Trevi Hammond. And this morning we're having a conversation on how critical it is for young people to be in the fight of, or maybe in achieving the SDGs, basically. And I've been joined by three individuals. I have Nino Kofi Omabo. He's He's an SDG advocate and also a youth leader. He works in the climate and sustainability space. I also have in studio Felix Preman in Ketia. He's also a youth leader doing some amazing stuff with U Report and all of that by UNICEF. And also Emmanuel Odonko. He's also with the UU. He's been with the UNFPA and doing some amazing things also there. These are the three individuals I'm having this conversation with. Please, I'd love to hear from you. If you have a message, kindly send to 0544321019, 0544321019. You can as well call me on 030395661, 030395661, and then I'll give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us this morning. All right, let's continue the conversation. Now, we've established a lot of things about SDGs globally and also locally. Now, this year's theme is local action, local youth actions for the SDGs and beyond. How does it resonate with your personal work, Ninoy? Hello, Ni. Hello. Okay, let me, Felix, maybe you may want to take that up. So, local youth actions for SDGs and beyond. How does it resonate with your personal work?
Okay, so when I am working, or when my team or the people that I work with, when we are working, we are not thinking about the SDGs, how we can achieve them, or we are thinking about the work we are doing.
Right.
We are thinking about the people that we are serving, the relationship we are building. So when we go out there on the streets for outreach, when we speak on issues, we are looking out for connections that we can build with these people, the trust, and in turn, when they trust us, they tell us what they need. And when they tell us what they need, we do whatever possible to be able to provide their needs. So at Future of Africa, which is an organization that helps to take children off the streets and then transform their lives with employable skills.
Wow.
On every Wednesday, they come to our center at East Legon, where we engage them. So when we are engaging these kids, we are not thinking about the SDG Goal 1, zero hunger that we are trying to solve by feeding them, or no poverty by trying to give them employment skills, or the zero hunger that we are trying to tackle. We are just focusing on the relationship we are building with them. And I think in a long way, these people trust us. And as far as they trust us, they recommend other people. And hence, we are getting a lot of people out of the street.
Right.
So we've been able to, build connections with people. We've been able to do family tracings. We've been able to help restore relationships that these kids broke from their families. And that is a way that we see the progress being made. We see progress from their lives, and it's a win-win. It does help us also at the SDG front. It does help us to take a lot of children off the streets of Accra.
Okay, right. Let me come to you. ODK, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. So
all right.
Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just trying to connect this year's theme, which is local youth actions for the SDGs. Now, do you think that we have been tackling the SDGs at the local level? Because I see a lot of things. I mean, for instance, when we talked about the secretariat at the president, it's at the presidency, and that is quite too far from the indigents. Today we talk about awareness. I know there are Ghanaians, there are people who don't know about SDGs at all. Do you think that we've been local about it enough, or maybe decentralized about it enough?
I think that is where we have a gap. And like Nina was saying, there are a lot of policies, there are a lot of initiatives, but then in terms of streamlining those things, in terms of streamlining those politics, in terms of decentralizing those politics, that's where we have a lot of challenge. Because Ghana is one of the leading countries with policies, but then when it comes to implementation, that's where we fall short. We lack implementing initiatives.
Right.
We lack these taking the first steps. But then we are quick to be one of the countries among, if not on the continent, that is very interested in, hey, let's put up this policy, let's put up that policy. And once that policy is passed, it makes no sense. Nobody is there to hammer the head of that policy to show that, we have to bring this to light. That's it. I like the fact that you made mention of how we used to have, or how there was an SDG, office, but then it was at the presidency. How is the young boy that is growing up in Choco who wants to learn about the SDGs who will have access to that office at the presidency? So yes, I agree with you. We need to make sure that some of these policies or some of these initiatives regarding the SDGs are a bit intentional. And aside the fact that they are intentional, they need to have direct access to the people. The people need to have direct access to these offices or to these institutions. So the same way we have DCE offices at the district level and the municipal level, we need to also be intentional to ensure that these SDGs will also be there at the district and the municipal level. But then you see, when you go to other countries like Sierra Leone, I will still use Sierra Leone here again because they are the country that I have seen them being intentional to some extent. They have what we call, a young people representing young people's interests, their country's young people interests at the UN level. But whereas in our case here in Ghana, we do not have like like that kind of thing. Do you understand me? And I would say that we can compensate on that with having a youth alone office, a youth standalone office. But that is still not enough.
True.
Because considering how, in terms of our current population, 60% of it are young people, that should tell us that the problems we face now, if we do not come up with solutions on our own as young people to address those challenges, in the next 50 years to come, those challenges will come back watching us like a mirror. So yes, the country is doing their part, but then it's not. In terms of intentionality, we lack that. In terms of that kind of streamline and decentralization of such policies and initiatives, we lack that one too as well. So for me, at this point, I think if anything at all, yes, we have put up initiatives, but those initiatives are hanging.
Right.
They are not reaching to the people. The people do not know much about these things. And I feel that if we want to be intentional about achieving the SDGs, we need to have it in our curriculum at the junior level, at the primary level, teaching these young folks like a standalone SDG curriculum to that, because the SDGs do not the SDGs are is cut across,
Right.
because you go to education, poverty, what we learn in social studies, the SDG covers it. What we learn in religious and morals, SDG covers it. What we learn in science, SDG covers it. What we learn in mathematics, SDG covers it. So in this case, why are we not having why is it that the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Youth, and then the Ministry of Works and Housing, the Ministry of Gender? I think it is not just about Ministry of Education. If we are to go deep into this, it is all of the sectors across the government institutions coming together, putting up an initiative to say, you know what, the SDGs is something that cuts across everyone on this table in this government. So why don't we come up with a pact, or why don't we come up with an intentional approach to this to ensure that young people are well informed, young people are well equipped, and young people are well empowered to achieve SDGs in the next 5 years to come.
Right. Right. Okay. So how can youth better work with local assemblies? And now we're calling for decentralization of some of these conversations around SDGs. How can we work? I know you've talked about education, but how can youth work with local assemblies and even traditional authorities to implement impactful projects in their communities? And I'll pose that question to Ninoy.
Well, thank you very much, Ed. So, in terms of how you can work with local government, I think that the local government needs to open up. I'll bring it back to the local government from their side, because we often do not know how much is going on, what is going on with the local government. So I think that there needs to be a bit of decentralization of information. It's one of the easiest ways to be involved, but unfortunately, we don't have enough information of how to go into it as central point. But I do see that there's opportunity if ourselves try to look for ways to be included. I know a few young people who are assemblymen in the communities that they live within.
Mm.
And I think that we should find our ways in they are good entry points, and that's where we work at the local level to drive local action. So I think that for me, I
They
think
should open up.
yeah, we need to open it up more so that young people can take more opportunities, like being assemblyman, right?
Right. Okay, Felix, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think youth should rather engage in local structures, because I do see with the friends that I work with, everybody has this perception that, oh, these people, they even want your money, they even want your support. They cannot do anything to help you.
Right.
But I think because they are part of, let's say, government structures, because they are part of the administration, even if it's a word, even if it's them communicating to the community members, the beneficiaries that we are serving, that goes a long way, rather than just doing it in isolation. Because I see a lot of youth or a lot of young leaders initiating projects like to people without even engaging the local authorities, because they say, oh, it's too tedious, it's too hectic to engage them. But who are you serving? These are the people leading those that you are serving. So why don't you engage them to enable you a smooth transition? It could even be a recommendation for people to accept whatever change you want to bring them.
Right.
So that is what I think.
Okay, so it cuts both ways. Nino talks from the local government angle, and then you also talk about the youth angle. So there needs to be some synergies in there to ensure that we are actually undertaking certain impactful projects. Now, there's also the private sector. What role do you think the private sector should be playing to support young people who are leading some change in their communities? And I'll ask you, Odonko. ODK.
Oh, yeah. I'll start by the initial question that you posed. We have to encourage intergenerational dialogue. Do you understand? Because I feel that if we do not encourage intergenerational dialogue, then we fail to bridge the gap in terms of the knowledge that the initial generation is having, that they are going away with, and how they can transfer that knowledge onto us, and how we can also strategically position ourselves to augment that knowledge into current innovative ways of addressing challenges. That's one. How the private sector can assist or can support. That's what you were asking, right?
Yeah.
The private sector is already doing their part. A lot of the private sectors are absorbing a lot of young people into their spaces. Let's take, and a lot of private sector in terms of NGO, in terms of institutions, multinational institutions like the EU, the UN. When you go to UNFPA, for example, we have UNFPA is having an initiative for the youth leaders for the program. When you go to UNICEF, I was talking about that just recently launched initiative in terms of digital literacy, if I'm not mistaken. When you go to UNDP, they have innovation hubs that seeks to bring young people together to come up with innovative solutions on tackling current challenges. So when you go to the EU, there's a youth sounding board. I'm sure when you go to NGOs, we have other NGOs that are sprouting out, or NGOs that are already existing. Curious Minds, we have, Gaio, for example. There are so many that they are also doing their part, but just that sometimes they lack that kind of support and collaboration from the government. Because one thing I would say over the period where I've been working in this field is that sometimes the government is not open for collaboration in terms of support from the private partners. Because they don't see you in a specific certain limelight, they are not giving you that audience, because they feel like you don't have anything better to bring to the table. If they don't see you bringing like $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 or even $50,000 to support an initiative, then they don't really accord you with that kind of support that you need to augment your work. And I'm referring to NGOs and local NGOs and international NGOs. Do you understand? So the work already is being done by the by private partners. What needs to be done is support from government in terms of partnerships or to streamline whatever that is being done so that there will not be double work being done. Because sometimes some of these initiatives that the private sector is doing, the government is also doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it ends up making the whole work double. And then you might get similar results over there. Whereas when you join hands together, you end up achieving more, reaching out more. Because if government is reaching out to 50 people, private sector too is also reaching out to 50 people with the same resources. When they come together, that resource is going to help them to reach out to even 100 or more.
Well,
Achieving the same goal, yet we are going to have reach out is going to be double the KPI that has been set up.
okay.
So private sector is doing their part, but I just feel that they don't have that kind of relationship establishment or that intentional support from government to bridge that gap and work in harmony to
Right.
achieve the set goals that we all have. Yeah.
Right. Okay, gentlemen, we have to go. We have to go. So let me try and wrap up now. I mean, of course, this conversation was largely about young people and their role in the SDGs and all of that, in achieving the SDGs. We have 5 more years ahead of us, and we need to bridge that gap as soon as possible. Maybe in one sentence, and I will start a sentence, and then you will wrap up for me. And I'll start with you. Nino, are you still with us? Hello, Nino, eh?
Yes, Trevi.
Okay, yeah. So without young people, the SDGs will maybe continue for me.
It will not be achieved.
Okay, all right. Then Odonko, you too. Without without young people, the SDGs will not be.
Will not be realistic.
Okay, and then finally,
realized.
Okay,
That was my word, but
all right. So, Felix,
we will not, yeah,
we will not be able to.
we will not be able to achieve. We will not be able to realize.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. Really, really grateful that you made time this morning to speak to me.
Thank you.
Felix joined me in studio. Felix Preman Inketia is a youth leader working with a lot of organizations, UNICEF and some other organizations. Also, Emmanuel Odonko, popularly known as ODK. He's working with the EU on some projects and all of that. These are all young people who are leading one way or the other. And also, Ninoy Kofi Omabo, he is a sustainability leader. He's also an SDG advocate. And these are the individuals I spoke to this morning. Gentlemen, thank you very much one more time for your time and your insights. All right, that's how we wrap up today on the Business Breakfast on Z.